Hey everybody, welcome back to the GOAZCATS.com football preview show. This will be the last preview show of the season. This is Arizona's last game of the regular season of the season. This is senior editor of GOAZCATS.com, Matt Moreno, joined by staff writer at GOAZCATS.com, Troy Hutchison. For the very last time this season, it's the big one, the Territorial Cup for Arizona. Well, for both teams, 96 is what everyone's going with. If you look at the records, it says 97. We'll get some clarification at some point about what number this is, but close to 100. The 100th, I think, will be a fun time. But for now, 96, 97, however many meetings they've had, this is for Arizona and Arizona State. The animosity never changes. Still as much anger from both sides. Today is Thanksgiving, of course. I'm sure there's some, we'll call them friendly family arguments about Friday's game. Plenty of houses that are divided. Everyone, within the state, you got to pick a team, unless you're weird and you pick NAU, I guess. But everyone has a team within the state, and this is what it's all for. It's all about winning the cup and having the bragging rights. Those bragging rights have belonged a lot to ASU the last few years. Arizona's had a rough go of it over the last 5 years. Hasn't been able to win in this game, but it feels a little bit different. Feels like maybe this is Arizona's best chance to pull off a win in this game. Arizona is favored going into the game. ASU has had some struggles. Very, very, very likely to have a new head coach, maybe soon. A lot of changes up in Tempe. Arizona building on, a one-win season last year. ASU got maybe one last punch in there last year against Arizona. Obviously, everyone remembers the last time the game was in Tucson, what happened. No fun, the last 5 years for Arizona. But for you, Troy, you're from Tucson, have grown up watching Arizona games. What does this week mean for you? I don't think you have any ASU people in your family, at least within your immediate family. Maybe you do, but what's this week like for you being from Tucson and just knowing that this big game is coming up, after Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we're going to take off the media hat for this one because this week means a lot to people in Tucson and in Phoenix as well. You grow up either a U of A or ASU fan, and you are taught to despise the other team. Forget about dislike. This is pure hatred between the two schools, especially on the football field. And, it's city versus city. It's Phoenix versus Tucson, small city versus big city. People that think they're better than you and you think that you're better than them. A lot of family arguments over the years at dinner tables for both sides. But this means everything. You can basically toss out the records at the end of the season for this game. You've seen both teams walk away with huge upsets. Recently, you've seen ASU walk away with a historic 70-7 victory in Tucson. And let's be frank, that doesn't sit well with Arizona fans. They still think about that game. I know they lost last year as well, but 5-game winning streak and losing streak in Tucson doesn't bode well for Arizona fans who are kind of used to beating ASU. If you look, Arizona has the all-time record against the Sun Devils, and having that little, you might be a better football program, but you can't beat us attitude about it. And so this one means a lot.
We'll get more to kind of the nitty-gritty of the game later on in the show, but you mentioned just how meaningful it is. Jumping to this year's Arizona team, there seems like a lot of fans are talking. It's been a topic on our message boards that maybe the team isn't as bought into the rivalry aspect of it this year. Jed Fish has kind of he's downplayed it, I think would be a safe word to say with that. I don't think he's never made a big deal about it. To him, it is kind of just another game. It's the last game of the season. He says the right things. Do you think there's that passion within the team right now with this game coming up, or maybe has it been so one-sided that the veteran players are just like over it, or do you think that the passion is going to be there once everything comes out on the field on Friday?
Oh no, I think the veteran players had that 70-7 image in their head, and you can tell just how they've handled themselves this week during interviews, especially Keon Bars. and how they talk, they remember and they really want this game. And, Jed kind of downplays it, but he's a competitor and you can tell he really is buying into this rivalry. You're talking about a program that has a quarterback that stuck the flag in the middle of his rival's field when he was at Washington State. Jaden Delora is buying into this rivalry. You're talking about 20 plus odd kids that chose Arizona over ASU, or ASU didn't pick them to go to Phoenix because at the time ASU was a better football program. So there's a lot of animosity. I think Arizona has downplayed it a little bit, but if you ask them behind closed doors, yeah, they want this one bad. And I could see Jed Fish, if it gets into this situation, trying to run up the score on the Sun Devils.
Yeah, I do think that Jed Fish kind of keeps things buttoned up publicly, and I'm going to guess there's a different feeling behind closed doors, and there's a different message, a different kind of demeanor behind closed doors when it comes to this game. I think fans would like to see that out in the open, but a lot of times that doesn't necessarily help you, in the game, and especially if it's a little bit more to closer to a toss-up than a team would expect. If Arizona was clearly the better team, who knows? We'll see. But maybe it's a different approach. But you were born into the rivalry. I had to kind of learn it. As most people, watching this know, I'm from California and got a little bit of a taste of it. You kind of heard about it and heard kind of the things about the rivalry. But when I was able to cover it in person, I've mentioned this before on other shows that we've done during this ASU week. It's pretty crazy. There's some things that are said when you're down on the sidelines, or, we get to go on the field for typically the end of the game in the fourth quarter. And sometimes those games are tight and there's a lot on the line in those games. And the things that are said from both sides, from fans to players, from players to fans, from fans to fans, it's stuff that you're not gonna tell your family about, and it's that you're not gonna tell your mom and dad. You're gonna be proud of those moments. Not gonna tell grandma about what you told somebody at the Arizona ASU game. But there are some crazy things that are said, and then once you're there and once you kind of are in it, you go, okay, this means a lot to a lot of people within this state, and I think even a lot of people who aren't necessarily even into football, or maybe just basketball fans, or maybe not even really into sports in general. They get into this game and they're like, it's something else. So that was something that I noticed, was just the vitriol and the animosity from both sides is something to behold. And it's you kind of have to experience it and be there to get the full sense. And I don't think people outside of the state truly grasp how much hate there is between these two schools. So knowing that both of them, aren't playing for a bowl game, I don't think it changes very much. I think they're going to play with the same type of intensity that they would have if they're both trying to get into a bowl game, and maybe something like what we saw in 2014 when they're both trying to win the South Division. There's no more divisions, but I think no matter what, you throw out the scores, like you said, and it's just kind of one of those games where you just want to beat, we'll say the snot out of your opponent because you just hate them. It would be fun to see Arizona's players and ASU's players get into it a little bit more, because this is one of those weeks where you can openly hate the other team and they know it. Both sides know you hate each other. And we saw that kind of boil over onto the field at times in recent years. Maybe some pregame dust ups, maybe some ADs involved in some dust ups, coaches involved in some dust ups. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Friday and what it looks like. I don't know that there's going to be that amount of kind of things going on before the game, but I definitely think you'll see the passion come out on the field. And at some point it'll be clear that, hey, this is a rivalry game, and you can throw out the scores. Obviously the ASU connection, again, we'll talk about the game a little bit more, but their quarterback is from Tucson, kind of an interesting kind of scenario there. But before we get to this week's game, I want to talk to you about, some of the games that you've watched in the past. I've obviously watched this for 11 seasons now. I think I've seen 11 Territorial Cups that I've covered, or at least been around for. You a lot more, maybe since you're born, have watched everyone. Give me maybe a handful of top 5, whatever you want, whatever your list is, of the top games that you've watched. Maybe not everyone's top games. Everyone, I think, is going to have a different version of a list, and depending on where you're from, what school you've been closer to, it's gonna look different. But for you, maybe give me a handful of the top games that you can remember that really stand out to you as being meaningful games in this rivalry?
Yeah, I think, you got to start off with number 5, and it's one that Tucson fans aren't going to really feel warm and fuzzy about. And that was I believe it was 2010 Territorial Cup. ASU won 30-29 in overtime. And that's famously known as the Max Zendejas game, Alex Zendejas game, where he missed the extra point and a field goal and got into it with one of the Arizona fans after the game. And you talk about everything in a rivalry. That game was Arizona riding a 4-game losing streak, ASU trying to get into a bowl game. Sun Devils prevail and just complete meltdown by the Wildcats. That is number 5. Number 4, Mike Stoops' first win in the Territorial Cup. That was the 2003 season, defeated 25th ranked ASU, 2004 season, 25th ranked ASU, upsetting the Sun Devils and getting coach, I forgot his name, Kruger. What was the ASU coach at Boise State?
Dirk Cutter,
thank you. Upsetted them and ended his coaching career in Tucson. That was a really good one for the Wildcats as well. Number 3, Mike Stoops gets to the bowl game in 2008, beating ASU 28-21. And a very good game, 28-14 in a very good game. Gronkowski had a receiving touchdown in that game. Nick Grigsby rushed for, I think, over 50-plus yards. Willie Dudom had a good game. Arizona ends the losing streak versus the Sun Devils and goes to a bowl game for the first time since 1998. And then number 2 is the 1998 Territorial Cup. Arizona defeats ASU 50-42 in a really tight game. Arizona 12-win season, best season in school history. Tron Canada had 3+ 50-yard touchdown runs in that game. Just a phenomenal performance. And lastly, the 2014 Territorial Cup, really an instant classic. You brought it up earlier, Matt. Pac-12 South on the line. You found out in the fourth quarter that the winner was going to go to the Pac-12 South title game. It didn't end well for Arizona in that game, but it felt like a huge moment for the program. The fans stormed the field. Both teams ranked in the top 15. If it wasn't for it being on a Friday, that might have been a college game day atmosphere. And in my opinion, probably the greatest game in the history of this rivalry.
Yeah, that was a fun one for sure. I think the lasting memory of that one for me is Scooby Wright almost decapitating Burko. That was a brutal hit. There was a lot
in that game. Arizona started off so fast.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fumble recovery, returned into the end zone right away. I remember that. I mean, that's one of those games that sometimes I have a bad memory, but I remember that game very clearly and remember a lot of different moments from that game. I mean, it was just one of those ones where, even at that point, I had only covered the team a handful of years. You still felt like this is not what happens for Arizona. This is what happens against Arizona. And to see all of that kind of play out and for it to line up, and they had, just beat Oregon, shortly before that, where it seemed kind of like something that was insurmountable. I mean, you beat the great, Marcus Mariota. Just how do you do that? And you have, the legend of Scooby Wright kind of being born. It was just one of those seasons where everything fell into place in that game as well, where it was like, oh, this is really happening, and they're going to go play for a Pac-12 title. And it was a really cool thing to see. And yeah, it was just one of those memorable games. And obviously you can't want anything more in a rivalry matchup than the two teams playing for something meaningful, and the loser of that game doesn't win that thing. I mean, that's just what you want. And so, every year, that's what this game is going to come down to. It's going to be, they can't win a Pac-12 title. The winner of this game doesn't win a Pac-12 title, but the best they can do is, trying to play for that Pac-12 title championship game appearance. And that was everything at that moment. So, just a really memorable one for sure. So I don't disagree with your list there. Any standout moments, maybe not necessarily games that you go, this was the greatest game, but obviously, Chuck Cecil has had, some great moments and one great moment. in particular, but and he's kind of the one that comes up a lot during this week when you're talking about the last few years. I'm sure if there's someone in that building who is bothered most by what's transpired the last several years in this rivalry matchup, it is Chuck Cecil. Obviously now Ricky Hunley on this staff as well. A lot of people who have gone through these battles and played in these games. But is there any maybe singular moments that stand out to you over the course of this rivalry? Maybe not just a whole game, like you said, or one that was a great game, but just moments where you go, "Oh, that was a memorable moment for me in this series."
Yeah, I mean, number one's got to be Chuck with the pick six against ASU. The Sun Devils in 1987 were playing to, possibly win a national championship. They already had the Rose Bowl locked up. Arizona had kicked them out of the Rose Bowl a couple years prior and consistently had done that over the years with Coach Larry Smith. And, that game kind of was getting out of hand, and Chuck put the final dagger in the ASU coffin, picking off their quarterback and returning it 106 yards for the touchdown. In the same game, you had James DeBow standing up their power running back at the goal line. That kind of sealed the deal as well. James DeBow was this like little defensive back that played running back at first. They moved him over to DB. I think he probably was like, 5'9", 5'10", $120, and he stands up this 215 running back, 220 running back at the goal line. That was a huge play. Max Zendejas, Mad Max, 2 game-winning field goals in that rivalry. ASU fans, not a big fan of Max Zendejas at all. And yeah, that brother combination where Luis played at ASU, Max played at Arizona. So you had the Zendejas family rivalry there. And then, one that personally sticks out to me is going back to that 2014 game. Arizona, they allowed ASU to get back into the game, and they had a big, I think it was 4th and 5, and they decided to go for it. And they ran Nick Wilson up the middle, and he broke free for like a 20-plus yard touchdown run. And it really felt like game over after that. And it felt like all the years of Arizona's turmoils were gone at that moment. All the missed opportunities to go to the Rose Bowl, all the missed opportunities to possibly play for a national championship in 1998 felt washed away in that moment. Obviously, it wasn't the stepping stone the program hoped for, but a huge moment there.
Maybe I'm putting you on the spot a little bit in this one, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But when you're growing up watching this series, we won't say when since you've covered it, just because that's not ethical and it's not appropriate. Or, but anybody that you hated from ASU, any guy that you're like, oh man, that guy, or anybody that you're just like, oh man, Arizona's going to have some issues with him, or anybody like that you came across when you were kind of growing up watching this game?
How about the whole team? like I'm just going to be honest, ASU's had a couple memorable players and all that during the rivalry. But, when you grow up here in Tucson, you see that Sparky logo and it makes you want to vomit. You see somebody wearing that and you're like, man, I don't like that guy already without even talking to that person. So for me, it was really the whole entire ASU team. And it really felt like us against them mentality back then. And you just wanted to see them fail, just fall flat on their face. And it wasn't even in that game. You rooted against them all season long. Didn't matter who they were playing. If ASU lost, it was a good day.
We'll be a little bit more unbiased now in this as we transition to this next topic here. Just the game itself. Obviously, ASU having its struggles, switch quarterbacks at one point, don't have a ton going for them. A lot of their top players ended up leaving. Kind of played out like we suspected it would in a lot of ways, especially when you're going through a coaching transition. They've had their moments. Trenton Bourguet has had his moments. Their quarterback, obviously people from Tucson know him pretty well, know the family pretty well. What do you make of ASU and what are some things that you're going to be looking out for in this game from both sides, from Arizona side, ASU side, just some things you're going to have your eye on when both of these teams, square off on Friday?
Yeah, ASU, when you look at their season, they've had their struggles offensively, kind of similar to Arizona last season, although their offense is a little bit more productive than what Arizona's was last year. Quarterback change, just having a lot of trouble getting anything going on that side of the ball. The one thing you look at on ASU's offense is Validate, their transfer running back from Wyoming. He played in the Arizona Bowl. I got to cover him when Wyoming came to the Arizona Bowl. Just a terrific back. Can do it all. A little bit undersized, but makes up for it with his speed and power. Over 1,000 yards rushing this season. That's the one guy on ASU's offense that you really need to keep an eye on. Just a terrific running back and could cause Arizona some issues. And then defensively, Merle Robinson has been a guy that ASU is, kind of like a staple figure of their defense over the years. I believe he was a 4-star linebacker coming out of high school, and he's just developed pretty seamlessly for the Sun Devils and has made plays in this rivalry game. So Arizona fans are going to remember him because he's made some phenomenal plays. That's the guy on ASU's defense. But overall, I think what I'm looking for is, can Arizona put this game away early and not allow ASU to hang in the game? Because if the Sun Devils hang in the game, a rivalry game like this, anything can happen, and it could be the 6th win for the Sun Devils.
Well, I think they're not going to get 6 wins, Troy. I think they're out of it.
6 wins in a row in this rivalry.
I get you now. Yeah. So in terms of just players you're going to be watching, you kind of mentioned it there, maybe alluded to it a little bit. Weird things can happen. Players that maybe you're not thinking about right now could very much factor into this game. Give me a few players that you're going to be keeping an eye on. Obviously, there's going to be some key players who we know are going to factor into this thing in a big way, but maybe give me a couple players that you're going to be keeping on that maybe are more common, and then maybe if you have kind of a wild X factor who could come into play in this game. I can give you one. I'll give you one that I think potentially, maybe, we'll see. But go through yours, and then I'll let you know what mine is.
I think we have the same one, which is going to be really scary here. But let's start off with Arizona in terms of everything for them. I think number one for the Wildcats is going to be DJ Williams in this game. I know Arizona isn't a team that runs the football a lot, but power back against a struggling ASU defense. I think he's going to have some opportunities, especially in the red zone, and you're going to see him score a couple touchdowns in this game. I think it's a good matchup for him. He's going to be able to overpower the Sun Devils linebacking group, and I like the matchup there. Number two is going to be Tanner McLaughlin. The guy's been a beast for Arizona this season, but has kind of come down to earth a little bit over the last couple of weeks, had a bad week against Washington State. I think he's going to have a bounce back week and is that red zone target for the Wildcats. And then lastly, here's my wild card. Ty. I really like Ty in this game. Arizona's, changed up things on the defensive line. He had the sack against UCLA, got in the backfield against Washington State, didn't get a sack, but caused some havoc there. I think he's going to come up with a big fumble in this game. I think he's going to be able to get to Trenton Bourguet and cause a strip sack fumble that changes the momentum of this game early.
I'm going way out of left field then if you're taking Ty, because he plays and he contributes. Mine is somebody who is from Tucson. Was kind of close to going to ASU at one point. Hasn't gotten a lot of burn. Got a little bit of time in that UCLA game. I think played like one snap in this last game against Washington State. Who knows what happens in the future with him? There's a lot of players at his position. It's been a struggle for him over recent years with injuries. How about Jamari Joyner coming in, factoring into this game somehow, in some way? Maybe he gets a run back. Maybe he does some different things. Maybe he gets to catch a pass or two. This is one of those games where weird things can happen. A player that you're just like, oh, I totally forgot he was part of this equation. He seems like we've been seeing him a little bit more recently. I feel like Jamari Joyner might have something to say. I don't know why, but it'd be fun for a Tucson kid to have a hand in beating ASU and breaking this streak. And I think there's enough there that he could have a chance, whether it's returning a kick, doing something big in the receiving game. I'm thinking more special teams, but I think
And
there could be an
had big
opportunity.
performances against ASU before.
I think there could be an opportunity there for someone like Jamari Joyner. It feels like the right guy, where a Tucson guy who maybe was potentially could be on the other side of this rivalry when he was getting recruited. Kind of out of left field, but I don't know. I'm feeling like Jamari Joyner might have a little something to say in this. We'll see what happens. It'd be fun.
Yeah. That would be cool to see.
And if not, I was wrong. Sorry, people. If he doesn't play at all, my fault.
I think Matt has him on the first touchdown scorer of the game, money line.
I just have him on the something weird just happened in the Territorial Cup game, and someone had to do it. So, now let's go into the prediction portion of this game. I've said since the very beginning, even before Herm Edwards was let go, there was just too much hanging over ASU's head this year. Do we still feel that way? I mean, what are your thoughts on this game and how it's going to play out, on Friday?
I think these are two programs heading in completely different directions. Yes, there was a real dark cloud hanging over ASU's head with Herm Edwards there. They got rid of that. They're in the middle of their coaching search, but it's been, the Sun Devils wandering through the desert this season looking for answers. I know they had the win over Washington, but that was at home. And other than that, they just really haven't looked that impressive. Struggled against Colorado. That final score is 42-34. A team that most teams in the Pac-12 have seamlessly blown out repeatedly this season. And on the offensive end, they just don't do anything exciting. Valadez is a very good back, but you got to have more than that. I think this is going to be an emotional game for Trenton Bourguet, but I don't see it going very well for him. I think Arizona and Jetfish are able to run up the score. The Wildcats win 49-15 in blowout fashion.
I'm going a different direction. I thought that. I do think Arizona wins. This has the makings of just a weird one. I don't know why. The teams are kind of even in a lot of ways. Arizona should win. They have more talent. They're a better team, I think. Don't have as much uncertainty going into this offseason. But I think ASU is going to put up a fight. Also, I just think, again, you throw everything out the window in this type of game. You have a Tucson kid coming back home, playing quarterback against a team that, didn't take him. He had to end up leaving and going to Tempe. There's a lot of things in this that I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I'm not going your direction. Do I think that could happen? Absolutely. Should it probably happen? Probably absolutely. But I think it's going to be a close one. I think just because it'll be fun to be a close one, I think there's going to be some strange things that happen, as I've already alluded to with my X Factor pick. I think the score is going to be closer than what the game is, if that makes sense. I feel like we've seen games like that before where you go, oh man, that was a close game. And you're like, in reality, it wasn't. I think it's going to be one of those games. I don't know why, but I don't think the Arizona offense goes as crazy as you think it's going to go. I think there's going to be, and maybe last week has a little bit to do with that, where there was so much kind of pent up like emotion and anger going into that game that it kind of threw Arizona off. I think that could be one of these types of games as well. Or this game could be one of those types of games. That's kind of where I'm leaning. Right now, I think Arizona ends up winning, but I think it's a close one, 28-27. I think ASU scores a late touchdown to kind of make it more respectable, make it closer, make it look closer than it was. But I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think there's going to be a fair amount of mistakes. I just think there's going to be a little bit too much kind of focus taken off of what's actually going on in the game. Maybe if Arizona wouldn't have played that way last week, I would have had a better feeling about it. But I think that's what I'm going to go with. 28-27. I think Arizona wins. A close one, but maybe not that. Maybe it doesn't feel that close, throughout the game. So that's what I'm going to go with.
We'll see.
We can both be wrong. We could both be right. Who knows? Well, I guess we both can't be right, but I guess they could win. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll have a wrap-up show at some point. But if not, we appreciate you guys all watching this season. I know everyone missed Joe. We missed Joe throughout the year. His insight You had to listen to us, two goobers throughout the entire season without Joe. He brings the fun, but hopefully we can get him back at some point. But we appreciate you listening and watching all season long. And it's never a disappointing game. So that we have that. Well, we'll take one of those recent games out of the memory for a lot of Arizona fans. That was a disappointing game. But hey, look what it brought. It brought some new exciting times, a new regime, a new attitude to the team. But we'll see what happens on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving if you're watching this early, or hopefully, you enjoy your rest and nap after eating all the turkey. Enjoy Black Friday. Oh, one last thing. I keep forgetting to do this. I want to make sure I do this before we go. Our buddy Steve Rivera, well, as I knock things over, buddy Steve Rivera has a new book out. He's been on the show before. We see the sports guys with him. Troy, you know him well. He used to be your boss at All Sports Tucson. He has a new book out. I want to make sure everyone, hey, it could be an early stocking stuffer, a Black Friday gift. Everywhere books are sold, Amazon, reach out to Steve. I'll put his information here somewhere on our screen if you want to get a copy, but make sure you get Steve's new book. And that's all I got. Anything else, Troy?
No, I'm just happy you guys enjoyed the show this year. Hopefully we'll have more to come after the Territorial Cup. And just wanted to say, if Arizona does win this game, that prediction of 5-7 looks pretty good.
Of course, Troy. Troy has to get that little dig in at the end of, hey, remember I said something and I got it right. But we appreciate you all listening. We'll let you all go. Enjoy your turkey. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday weekend.